and 10th, and then you have Ayyam al-Tashriq. So we specifically talk about the months of the year. But if I were to ask individuals, brother, what is your birthday from an Islamic calendar perspective? You should at least inshallah ta'ala, from now onwards, because what does this tell us is that in true reality, what do we give importance to? Because if you were to always only use, why am I mentioning this? Because I had a family member of mine pass away, and we were writing down the dates, and I was telling them, brother, you should include the Islamic calendar date. And one of the response I got was, why should I include the Islamic calendar date? This is an Arabic date. And I had to convince the brother that, brother, when you fast in the month of Ramadan. When you do, let's say when you do Hajj, we do Hajj in the month of Dhul Hijjah. So if this is purely an Arabic date, none of us will be fasting. We won't be using these months. But this tells you also what has happened to us after we got conquered by the Western powers, by European colonists. When they conquered us, not only did they conquer us physically, they also, wiped away our identity. Because today, many of us were laughing, but in true reality, it is sad, but it's also funny. Because what does this indicate? So if I were to ask you, now today we all know Muharram is the first month. But if I were to ask you, how did they choose Muharram, or why did they choose Muharram as the first month? Or how did we know that this year is going to be the first year? Does anybody have a decent idea? Because we're talking about, 1, 4, 4, 5 number of years. We're talking about 1,400 years have gone by. So we need to ask ourselves, how much of Islamic history do we ourselves understand? And was this the Prophet ﷺ himself who said, okay, starting this year will be the first year of Hijri, or is it somebody else? Why did they choose Muharram? Does anybody have an idea before we go into this topic? Who actually made the first year of Hijrah, and who actually chose Muharram as the first month for the Islamic calendar? Does anybody have an idea? We have somebody from the, yes. Who? Yes, Umar radiallahu anhu was the one. So it didn't happen at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that means you had the Prophet ﷺ's entire lifetime had gone by. You had another Khalifa, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr, his name is subhanallah, Abdullah ibn Uthman. That's his name for the ones who are wondering what's Abu Bakr's actual name. His name is Abdullah ibn Uthman. Yeah, Abdullah ibn Uthman. Or you can call him Abdullah ibn Abu Quhafa. That's his father's name, yes. So that is Abu Bakr's name. And then you had Umar ibn Khattab. Now what was this reason why they decided? So one of the signs of a civilization is that whenever they start growing, or when they start expanding their territories, that usually this will come into place. That's why you have the Chinese calendar. They even till here in America, they like to celebrate the Chinese New Year. This is a sign of civilization. So when at the time of Umar ibn Khattab, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, his name is Abdullah ibn Qais, Ash'ari is a Yemeni tribe. So when when they used to correspond and when they used to receive letters, they didn't know when they had to execute or when it was supposed to act upon. Because if I were to tell you, okay, do this in the month of Rajab, and you receive the letter in the month of Rajab, you might be like, do I do this now? Or is this for the next year? So this was one of the confusions that happened at the time of Umar ibn Khattab, because at that point the territory were expanding. They had the Battle of Qadisiyah, they went to the Persian territories, they expanded, globally we were expanding. So when this happened, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he does mention to Umar ibn Khattab about this whole confusion, that we do not know when exactly to execute when you receive any sort of command. And when they had a shura between the Sahaba, that is, you had Umar ibn Khattab, you had Ali radiallahu anhu, and you had Uthman, all of these three, the Khalifa that were to, obviously the last one is Uthman, I'm from the righteous, the caliphs, that all of them, they actually had a shura, they all sat down. So there were multiple recommendations, i.e. to make the month, the birth month, or to make Rabi al-Awwal the month of Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ himself did not migrate in the month of Muharram. Muharram was not the month that he migrated, but Rabi al-Awwal was the month that the Prophet ﷺ migrated. So that was one of the suggestions. The other one was to make Ramadan itself the month of, or at least the first month of the year. It's because that was a time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the Quran upon the believers. Now the third one was the option of Muharram. And obviously, if we are living a time now, the month that they chose between what was agreed upon between the Sahaba towards the end was to make Muharram the first month of the Hijri calendar. The Prophet ﷺ himself migrated in Rabi al-Awwal, and the year of migration was the year that they all agreed upon to make the first year of Hijrah. So it is not the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, none of this, but the year of migration, and the Muharram is going to be the first month. The year he migrated was going to be the first year of the Hijri calendar. So hopefully this is something that we all understand. Now why is this very important? Today, how do you use, I'll give you some examples how they use this practically. So if you were in Saudi Arabia, why do I say this? Because this is something that they push very harshly in terms of like they want you to use the Islamic calendar. You open the newspapers, they try their best, whether you agree with that country or no, they at least try their best to use the Islamic dates. Even in a lot of the Arab countries, they like to mention the Islamic dates. Now what they do, because I cannot, whenever the day or the month starts, we wait for the hilal, i.e. we wait for the crescent moon for the new month to start. But if I were to tell you your exam is going to start depending on the crescent, it won't work for the students. Or if I were to tell you the school will start if we see the new month, so they have a calendar called Qura. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. They call that calendar itself Qura, which is a fixed date. And they usually write Qura muwafiq ala tarikh al-miladi, and then they'll say the miladi date is so and so. They will give you the Qura date, which is a Hijri date, which is a Hijri calendar, but it's fixed. They don't rely, that's just to have a fixed date. Let's say you have to start the school year, they all know, and the agreed date of, let's say the CE, this is the date, and the Hijri calendar date is going to be this. But then they have the dates that you and I all hear of. They'll tell you, okay, Ramadan is going to be this month. This is the one they wait, they watch, whether they do it or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But at least, this is what we're supposed to do. Whenever we start a new month, we're supposed to see the crescent. So that means now the date has changed from 15th to the 16th. Our day, the next day has begun, or the night has begun. We're from Maghrib, we're Maghrib to Maghrib people. So I always tell people, whenever we do the dates change Islamically, we're from Maghrib to Maghrib. Maghrib to Maghrib is when our dates change. For obviously, for the CE calendar, it's the 12 a.m. when you move into the new date. For us, the dates change Maghrib to Maghrib. So now we have entered the 16th of Dhul Hijjah. If you're wondering what the date is, that is if you celebrated Eid on, I hear that what day you guys do it, Sunday or Monday? Sunday? Okay, so 16th here. So this, by the way, in terms of ikhtilaf of the moon sighting, global sighting or local sighting, this is an ikhtilaf in the madhahib. I won't go into this detail. But at least for us to know, the dates start from Maghrib to Maghrib. The first month was something that they all agreed upon between the Sahaba, and the year of the Hijrah is what they all agreed to start, the year of the Islamic calendar itself. Now for us, why is this important? When we talk about the Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is a time when actually the Hajrah is to abandon something. So there was two Hijrahs that happened. Hijrah when it comes to the physical Hijrah, that all of them, they left their property, their wealth, their family behind, and they migrated for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they could practice the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala freely. This was the physical Hijrah. And physical Hijrah itself is something, even till date, any time you are not able to practice the sha'ir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the signs, well established things in the deen. If tomorrow they tell you you have to shut down the masajid, and they make it very strict, now it becomes an obligation for all of us to leave any land that you live in. If they tell you from tomorrow you cannot establish the 5 daily prayer, or from tomorrow none of you will wear the hijab, or they enforce things where something that is well established in the deen and is a foundation, once they take that off, now certain rules will apply for you. So anytime they take that foundation away, where you cannot openly practice the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this hijrah becomes an obligation. So our loyalty is always going to be towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously we all have connections. We love the land, either that you were born in or you grew up in. We all have that connection. And even for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Mecca was something beloved to him, but not to the point that we forget our loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is that first when it comes to the physical hijrah. Now the second thing that is very important is whenever it comes to the spiritual hijrah is to abandon something. When they left from Mecca, what they were abandoning also was the oppression, and they couldn't freely, openly pray. There were only some of the Sahaba that actually openly prayed. One was Abu Bakr, and even him they tried to stop him. Umar radiallahu anhu, because of his Islam and the Islam of Hamza, they were able to do tawaf openly. But before, they had to hide. I see many of the brothers, even in our day and time, if you were to tell them, hey, go pray Maghrib at the airport, when you get there, inshallah, many of us may feel shy. This is the only feeling that can give you in our day and time, even though the Americans generally don't bother you. But most people today will feel very shy to pray in public. They feel like, oh no, I have to go find a room or anything of that sort. But imagine if you could get beaten up just for praying. You could get beaten up for just doing tawaf. This is to give you an idea of what the early Muslims went. So when they left this land and they went to the land of Darul Salam, which is where they could establish Islam, they could establish the rules, their treaty with the Jewish tribes, where they were to establish even the Islamic laws. Obviously things were being revealed to them one by one. This was a major significance. That's why even the Sahaba, they chose this year itself, where they were to istiqrar ad-din, where they were to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why they chose this particular year. Now another thing that we have to talk about is we have 12 regular calendar. The Hijri calendar. Allah. This is in the Quran. Maybe he can tell me the ayah. Inna عدة الشهور عند الله شهر. Subhanahu wa ta'ala does make mention there is 12 months in the calendar. So the first month we have is Muharram. The last month we have is, we're in this month. What's this month? Dhul Hijjah. So in that فيها أربعة حرم. There's 4 حرم. حرم, what is the meaning of حرم? Is something is haram. So there's ikhtilaf amongst the scholars when it comes to Hurum. What does it actually mean, especially in our day and time? So one, even in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, when they actually migrated to Medina, they attacked a caravan. The Muslims attacked a caravan. They're well recorded. They attacked the caravan when the month of Hurum had started. The Kuffar of Quraysh made this a big deal about this. They made a big deal, and this at this point of time, this was obviously a major sin. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had also pointed them that when they actually threw the people of Mecca was even worse, i.e. their oppression to the Muslims was even worse. So this is one thing. So fighting in the month of Hurum, these 4 months, that is Rajab, Dhul Qi'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram, is prohibited. So this is something that they all agreed upon. Now the question is this applicable to us today? This is where the ikhtilaf is. So the ikhtilaf among the scholars is this rule abrogated, or does this apply obviously to the end of the times? Because obviously today when some Muslim country has a declared war, they don't ask you, is this the month of Hurum or is not the month of Hurum? They just declare war, or they're fighting each other, and it goes on for years. Generally speaking, this was the time, even in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, if a man saw a killer, and especially he's in the haram itself, the area of haram, he would leave him alone. Or if they actually were in the month of Hurum, they would not fight each other. But the kuffar of Quraysh, they came up with few tricks. They would move the months of Hurum between. They'll say tomorrow, okay, it's not going to be Rajab, it's going to be something else. So this is something the kuffar of Quraysh would do until towards the end of the Prophet ﷺ. After a lot of swapping, it came back to its original order. And obviously the Quraysh actually would not even go to the plains of Arafah. We can talk about a lot when it comes to how they would play with the laws. This is a reminder for all of us, whenever it comes to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we hear it, sami'na wa ata'na, and we don't want to be amongst the people who sami'na wa asayna is something what Bani Israel used to do, or they would excessively question the Anbiya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something they all felt, and we find even the Quraysh, what they would do is they would play with the months of Hurum until towards the end it fell back to its original order. So today what we have at the time towards the life of the Prophet ﷺ, what we had was the original order that was actually given or it was actually how it was supposed to be. In our day and time, does the concept apply to these months? Let's say if some Muslim country were to fight, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. This is majority, in fact, of the scholars have said this does not apply. But the ayah itself, ala zahirihi, it says, is going to be applicable itself. So this itself is a difference amongst the scholars. What is important to us? A very, very important thing. Every single Muslim's life is valuable. It is valuable like the day of Arafah. It is valuable like the Haram itself, that is Mecca. And is also valuable, his wealth is valuable. And this is something that was actually mentioned to the Hujjaj in the last sermon of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before we go into the details of, can we fight, can we not fight, every single life, today, whatever is happening today, our blood is being spilled. But a reminder for all of us, we have to start changing what is a priority. Because today when I first started off with, when I asked you, what is your Hijri calendar birth date? If you didn't know, inshallah ta'ala, from now on for that next generation, we want to make sure that they know. When somebody passes away, we want to make sure we know when they were born and when they were passing away. And obviously the ones who conquered, they dominated, at some point of time Arabic was a dominant language. When the time of, Andalusia and all of these things, it was a dominant language. And obviously as we grew weaker, our calendars also fell behind, our languages fell behind. This is one of the things, inshallah ta'ala, at least in this country, alhamdulillah, many of you are, in high positions. Be proud of your identity, even if you have to pray in public. Wallahi, do not ever feel shy. That, I want you to think about this. When I was recently in California, and how California, especially the Bay Area, if you guys have been to, many people, they're proud of things that even for somebody who's non-Muslim, they would be like, okay, you guys are crossing all lines. But for them, they do it openly. So what about us? We know the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٌ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Every person that is born upon the fitrah, i.e. to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And you are establishing that in your life. So even if you have to pray publicly, you have to do wudu in public areas, all of these things, take pride in it. Because the ones who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take pride in their disbelief. And this is one of the things that Umar ibn Khattab had mentioned towards the end, that the Muslims, they would feel shy, and the ones who disbelieve will feel proud of their disbelief. So inshallah ta'ala, it is not just memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but is also acting upon it. Today we have so many huffaz, so many. But the question is, how many of us actually act upon the Quran? How many of us actually give value to the life of a Muslim? So all of these things, start with the dates, something very, very simple, not too hard. Check what date you were born. I know mine is 21/6. I won't mention the year, then you'll know my age. 21/6, the date on the month, if you're to do a non-American. So inshallah ta'ala, start with this, at least know the months, know what month we're on, every single month. Try to do some background of all of these things. Few important things today, inshallah ta'ala, when you walk away. Umar ibn Khattab is the one who established it, the one who brought it up was Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. He's a Sahabi, well-known Sahabi. His name is Abdullah ibn Qais. Ash'ari is a Yemeni tribe. So I'm giving guys exposure to some of the names of the Sahaba also. And it was agreed upon, muwafaq, upon the Sahaba. And today, whatever calendar you find, inshallah ta'ala, try to Google al-Qura calendar. Is a calendar that's going to be fixed, and the other calendar is the one that you will have to depend on the moon sighting. So for us, every time we see a new hilal, new date, Maghrib to Maghrib. So inshallah ta'ala, I haven't gone into all the details and all the ayahs, but today was just to give us exposure into how all of this started. So whenever we write down a date, inshallah, when we have a son, a grandson, try to find out even the Hijri calendar, and try to use a Hijri calendar in your marriages. Inshallah ta'ala, write those in your dates. The date CE is so and so, and the Hijri date is so and so. Be that person who brings that change. And same thing for your aqiq and all of these things. Once you push in, it's also a sign of strength, inshallah ta'ala. Take pride in your identity, and this is what we want to establish even in this country, or even in our Muslim countries. Be very proud. Let us also let us not get conquered even mentally also. This is something very, very important. Take proud in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa tawfiq and la ilaha upon that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise the honor of the Palestinian and the people of all the Muslims, especially in Sudan and in Burma and India. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise this test from all of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give a shifa to the ones who are sick, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the mu'mineen in all across the world. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك جزاكم الله خيرا. Any questions on that particular topic? I try to keep it very short and precise so we finish in half an hour. Any questions on this? I think we're good, inshallah. It's very, very simple today. جزاكم الله خيرا. Yes. Oh boy. So I'll just give you a general concept. The ones who do it, so he was just asking about celebrating birthdays. If they do it on an Islamic calendar itself. So the question is, the ones who allow it, I'll give you what's the reasoning behind it. They say this is not an act of ibadah, it's a personal celebration. So there is nothing wrong with me personally celebrating something. And unless and until you're doing this to gain the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is not, because for you to gain reward of something, it has to be, since they consider this a personal celebration. Let's just say you're celebrating a 1-year anniversary at 1 year. So for them, they consider it a personal celebration, they allow this. Now, as of for the ones who don't allow it, their view obviously is that you're doing something every single year, and they think that this is something that you should not do since you're repeating it every single year. In my younger days, I stuck to I personally don't celebrate birthdays myself, but I have not taken a stricter approach to it anymore, because any person who's celebrating a birthday at this point is not really doing it to gain the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a personal celebration. Now, if you want to do it on an Islamic calendar or something, that is the calendar we want to follow, inshallah ta'ala. So if you're going to remind yourself, hey, it's your birthday, happy birthday, or something along those lines, if you do it at least the Islamic calendar, alhamdulillah, this is a step towards doing the right thing. Slowly, we want to walk away from using the CE calendar as much as possible, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. That's your personal choice, but like I said, this is something the scholars have differed upon. If you do it, that's going to be your. I don't do it for my kids, but if somebody says, if I have gone to people's houses, they surprise me by saying, "Oh, it's my son's birthday." But for now, I would tell you, since this is an ikhtilaf among the scholars, be gentle with the people, just like how you are gentle with the people who celebrate Eid on a different day. I'll give you one example. The Shafi'is, they depend on the local moon sighting. And if you were let's say in Egypt when the Imam Shafi'i was there, are you going to reject his opinion? Be very, very lenient. You can be strict upon yourself as an individual. You can choose to say, I want to avoid anything that is doubtful. I want to avoid anything. You can have this wara, you can have this taqwa as much as possible as an individual. As a community, it's hard to enforce the strictness because you're dealing with various opinions and various schools within the main school itself. So inshallah, when you deal with the community, be lenient. With yourself, you can be super strict. Even within your own family, your own wife will tell you you are too strict. So this is the reality. With yourself as an individual, you can be strict. As soon as you start expanding, the reality is flexibility will be required. Yes, It's the same concept as birthdays. The ones who allow it will say it's a personal celebration. Alright, inshallah, anything else? Alright, jazakallah khairan. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. We have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu table outside. We have a program for kids 6 to 13 and an adult class 13 and up. We have a table outside, so if your kids want to enroll or if you want to enroll yourself, please, you could just check us out and or contact me for more information. Thank you.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you, brother?